She-Hulk. She's green, fly, and beautiful, and I'm kind of digging it. The MCU's She-Hulk pilot episode aired on the 18th of August this year, 2022, and it stars Tatiana Maslany as Jennifer Walters, aka the She-Hulk. Now, for those of you that might not know much about the character from the comic books, here's a brief rundown. So, real world story. The Hulk was already there, existing, making money for Marvel, and then it turns out that another company, law can be crazy sometimes. So it turns out that another company called CBS, which you know of, making other series and stuff, actually wanted to make a series for another character based on Hulk named the She-Hulk, and given the legalities then, I guess they were allowed to. So in order to jump on that wagon quickly and to capitalize on it, instead of someone else stealing a part of their IP, Marvel created a character named the She-Hulk, and that's how we got Jennifer Walters. Now, there are certain similarities between this character in the MCU and from the comics, which first and foremost I would say is a big pro for me. Compared to all the major gripes I had, especially with the pilot episode and even for the rest of the series for Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan in the MCU, you can check that one out up here. But then for this one, they still stuck true to the comic roots in a way that is even much more contemporary and makes more sense for the real world. So what do I mean by that? Now, in the comics, these two characters are 5 years apart. Bruce is 5 years older than Jennifer Walters. Jennifer Walters is his cousin, who is a daughter to a police sheriff, and she's a lawyer in the real world. Now, in the comics, she was already a criminal prosecutor, and she was on this case against Trask, and this guy hired his goons to come against her. Now, there was an ensuing fight, and then she lost a lot of blood, and in the heat of the moment, Bruce Banner thought about it. He tried to look for help around, but he could not find any, and there wasn't enough time for emergency services to get to them in time in order to save her life. So he had to do a quick blood transfusion. And yes, he did a blood transfusion for her, and he wasn't thinking at the time. It was the heat of the moment, a lot of adrenaline, but by the time he was done doing that, then he realized that, oh crap, gamma in my blood, I just gave her some of it, and that is how we found She-Hulk. Because at the point when the guys that botched the initial job wanted to finish what they started, they came to the hospital to kill her, and that was when she woke up and she went all green and hulky, and she took them to town. She really messed them up. But then the thing is this, unlike Bruce Banner Hulk, who has Hulk as a separate character, his alter ego, once is that, compared to now that we have Smart Hulk, who combined the brains and the bronze into one character. For Jennifer Walters, from day one, she had full control of her Hulk form, so she was still herself. So it wasn't two different personalities from the comics, and that translated also into the MCU. So she had that, but then it also comes with its own limitations in the sense that, Hulk, the angrier he gets, the stronger he gets, and he's a different persona from Bruce Banner. If you remember, there was a time in the MCU where Bruce Banner said there was one time when he wanted to kill himself. He actually pointed a gun in his mouth, shot it, but the Green Monster spat it out. So yes, there are two of them in one body, at least as far as the MCU is concerned. It gets crazier in the comics. But then for her, it's one person. And that is also a certain limitation for her in the sense that she's not as strong as Bruce Banner Hulk, but she is strong. She is also still a powerhouse. So yeah, that's where it ends for the comics. Now moving to the MCU. The way she gets her powers, and this is no spoiler because it's all there in the trailer, they showed the scene. The two of them were on their way driving in vacation. She was actually the one driving. And then a Sicarian ship appears in front of the car. And yes, of course, when you are distracted and something pops up in front of you, the heat of the moment, you could actually lose control. And that was what happened. Lost control, the car somersaulted. And then some of his blood leaked into her skin. And that was how we got her. Now, it might seem like a cheese kind of situation, but it's very possible. And honestly, I think that explanation still works a lot more compared to the one in the comics. It's not like the one in the comics is bad by any means, but this one also works. So I like that. The question I do have though is, and the MCU, because I remember in my Moon Knight review, you can check that out here. I remember asking questions like the times when our main character, Mark, blacked out. Those scenes that by the time we're done, all we saw was carnage. I hope the MCU will show us. They never did show us. So now, I don't know if they will answer this question later, but at this point in time, Bruce Banner is no longer inhibited, so it was his blood that leaked into her. And there was this ship, the spaceship that came in front of them that caused the accident. So did he take care of them in his Hulk form? Is that why he could not find her to figure out what happened to her until later on in the night when she had already called him and told him where she was? Because yes, even though there's a bit of a time skip, it also begs the question, the reason for the accident, was it ever dealt with by Bruce Banner Hulk? Because at this time, yes, it's now Hulk. But then, moving forward. Now, a lot of the things I'm going to be telling you are things that you've definitely seen in the trailer, but I just want to explain a little bit more and break down some parts that might seem a bit confusing. But this is not going to be one of those videos where I'll say 50 things you missed in the pilot episode of She-Hulk, because once I'm done watching this pilot episode, I'm not going to watch it for another 4 to 5 weeks till the finale is done. I'll binge the rest and then I'll do it like we do on this channel. So now for the rest of the episode, yes, we get to see a nice sequence of where he starts explaining to her what everything means for her, and then he has a binder. He said it himself that he never thought he would have a need, but then he documented his own process of getting up to this point where he's smart Hulk by combining the brains and the neurons. And we get a couple of nods to the major MCU characters that are now dead, namely Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. And see, the thing is, a lot of people see this series as a sitcom, like they even call it that. And the fun fact about it is, for me, yes, it's funny, especially because of Tatiana. I love Tatiana. Like, if you've not seen Orphan Black, I advise you do. She plays a couple of really dope characters: Sarah Manning, Alison Hendricks, Rachel, Cosima. So many awesome characters in one person that you just love. Helena especially is my favorite. Sestra. The Sestra dance is something that I consider epic TV watching. So if you haven't, I think you should do. And I think that's another thing that they've gotten right with this series. Tatiana as Jennifer Walters is amazing. Also, from the comics, she used to do a couple of fourth wall breaks. Now, she's also doing that in this. She has the part where she looks at the screen and she explains to us. She has another part where she says, "Lawyer show," and then she moves on. I like it. I like, so far, a lot of things about this series I really like, and I think they are nailing it. The parts that I would say are cons for me are, first and foremost, the CGI. Now, I know it's an elephant in the room. I won't call it a major con, but the reason why I said it's a con is the fact that if you remember the very first Hulk movie, and I'm talking about where we got that green monster that looked very cartoony, it was a process. Up until this point that we got him, even Bruce Banner Hulk in the MCU, the one in the first Avengers movie where he was introduced, and now you can see that the technology has really improved, and there's a lot of stuff, videos out there on the internet where they showed how they refined the process. So this is the first time she's appearing on the big screen. I can bet you the next time she's going to appear, which is going to be maybe some kind of combined movie with another character, if you compare the CGI from this series to the CGI then where she appears, you will see that it's better. This is their first time, so I am willing to cut them a lot of slack. It is better than the trailer though, that much I would say. The trailer looked a lot more unpolished and unfinished compared to the final one. But yes, there's a lot of work, but this is the first iteration, I understand. And another thing to consider also is the fact that this is a series. See, while I know that this is the MCU and they will put a lot more money behind their series, at the same time, I know that it's not going to be as much money that they'll put behind it compared to their big budgets, big screen stuff. And honestly, it shows with some of these things, but I don't think that's a deal breaker for me. Now, the one that I would say is a major con for this series is the fight. It's really been Disneyfied. And while I have nothing against Disney as a company, for some characters, I'm thinking it's looking like Disney owning Marvel, owning stuff that the MCU produces is beginning to look like a con. You will say, okay, Kamala Khan is the way Kamala Khan is because it's meant to be a kid show, it's meant to target a different demographic. Well, Jennifer Walters is an adult. The only time we actually see her fight against someone, yes, she fought against her cousin Hulk, but then we knew that there were no major stakes in that one. Now, while I did not expect her to destroy the entire courtroom or do all of that, you've seen the clips in the trailer. It looked very fake. It reminded me of One Punch Man season 2. That was a major reason why that season 2 sucked, and it's taking much longer before season 3 got announced. I saw in news that season 3 got announced yesterday, which I'm happy for the series, and I pray they do it the way they did season 1. If you notice, now here's where I'm getting to. One Punch Man's punch never actually hit. We never saw it hit. What we saw was boom, and then the next thing you see is the character jumping back, and then you see a pose of maybe the punch. And that was exactly what happened to this one. Titania was coming towards her in the court, and then she did this. So she went into her Hulk form and then did this, and then we saw Titania jump, then we saw her do this, and then we saw her jump back, and then next we saw her do like no, you don't do that. This is a Hulk. Why I get it, honestly, for a series especially, and from the comics too, she's more Jennifer Walters in Hulk form than Jennifer Walters as Hulk. And she loves, unlike Bruce Banner that hated his Hulk form, she loves the Hulk form. For a time during the comic itself, she could not turn back to Jennifer Walters' human form because she thought it was some kind of charm that one enemy put on her. But it turns out that it was actually a mental block. That was how much she loved the Hulk form. And I think this series is going in that direction, which I like. But one thing that they need to deliver on are the fights. It's the MCU. It is not some random thing from somewhere. See, anything DC, MCU is superheroes. And while I understand that the story is core, the action is also core. Winter Soldier, till today, is still one of the top 3 MCU movies ever. I think most people will agree on that. And it's because of 2 things. The story and the action that the Russo brothers delivered on. So that's the thing. I think these 2 elements need to come together for you to say this is something that is dope from the MCU. Overall, I liked the pilot, unlike the last one from the MCU that I absolutely hated, which is Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel. I liked the pilot. It wasn't great by any means, but it was good. It was fun to watch. And again, Tatiana, great casting. And of course, yes, we have Mark Ruffalo, and we've seen a couple of other people that will come in. I'm really scared, and I'm skeptical about Daredevil being Disneyfied. Daredevil was perfect in Netflix. It was adult, it was fine. So I'm really scared, but I really hope he does not get Disneyfied. I hope his fights are actually dope if he does get to fight, which, I mean, why else will you introduce him if he doesn't fight? So I really hope all of these things come together well. The fights need to be awesome. Yeah, story needs to be great, but the fight needs to be awesome. And also Wong, maybe Wong's appearance might just be a cameo situation. We might never know. Abomination does appear. Does he break out? Does she get to fight against him? Truth be told, Abomination, at least from the comics, is stronger than Jennifer. So if they do get to fight, well, we'll see how it goes, if that fight ever happens. But then overall, it wasn't bad. They just need to be better with the fights, especially. The fights just need to nail it for this series. If the fights don't nail it, I think it's going to be a fail. And that's just my 2 cents on this. And that's it for this review. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. See, your subscriptions, your comments, and especially your shares help this channel out. It's just a couple of clicks, but trust me, a couple of clicks go a long way in helping this channel reach everybody. I appreciate you guys that have been doing it so far. For those of you that haven't, please consider doing so. For you to even get to this point in the video, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. It's been Tech for GVNNaija. Don't forget to check out this video or this video next to see some of our other dope reviews on the channel. Live long and prosper.